There are a lot of mentors that are like in the making. A lot of people don't really think of themselves as maybe mentor material, but of course, there is so much value that they can provide, even if they don't know. I could mentor a finance person, like I can't really calculate a lot of the part, but I could definitely ask, what are you trying to achieve and how can we get through it? And so I think carving out the time and believing in your own value to share, to encourage more mentors to step up would be great.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Learning Pod, an Epicor podcast. I'm your host, Roxanne Rodriguez. Welcome to the show and Happy New Year. Today, we're reshaping the way you think about mentorship. January is mentoring month, and I'm thrilled to have two amazing women with us who are a part of our Epicor mentorship program as a mentor and mentee. Please welcome Rosanna Martinez, Senior Director of Customer Support. Rosanna joins us with nearly 30 years of experience in technology and customer experience. She has a strong record of building high-performing global teams and has led marketing and customer support teams in Japan and Costa Rica. Please also welcome her mentee, Grace Misichek, Product Marketing Manager. Grace joins Epicor over 3 years ago after graduating from UT Austin. She's contributed to the brand marketing and marketing business intelligence teams. Now she's moving to the product marketing team to support Epicor's retail product strategy. Thank you all both so much for being here. I'm excited to get to know you and your thoughts on our topic today. Rosanna and Grace, welcome and thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, like I said, January is mentoring month. And here at Epicor, we have our Epicor mentoring program. Rosanna, can you tell our pod listeners how you view your role as a global mentor in our mentoring program?
So it's really a phenomenal program. I'm so happy to be part of it. And I know it's a new program for Epicor. And frankly, I'm new to Epicor. So when I heard about it, I definitely wanted to volunteer my previous experience at different companies and see how I can help shape the career path of one of our team members. And so being matched with Grace has been great because we're both in Austin, Texas, which is, despite leading global, missions, we get the close proximity to each other, which is a great match.
That's great to hear, Rosanna. Mentorship truly can make a difference in someone's life. I think even mentor to mentee and mentee to mentor, for sure. And speaking of which, I know that I've had amazing mentors in my days and in my life who have really helped teach me everything that I've learned today. Grace, how has being under the mentorship of Rosanna impacted your professional career so far?
Yeah, it's been great so far. Of course, we've only been paired together for a few months, but even in that time, we've made a lot of headway. We've been able to go on a customer visit to one of Rosanna's customers here in Austin, which was really cool to see the behind the scenes of what her team does and how they can physically support the customers in person, seeing how they interact with our products. And then also, I recently decided to move teams internally in Epicor, and Rosanna was so helpful in that move, just to be able to talk it through with her and see how customer support and product marketing could work together. She was able to actually go ahead and introduce me to the customer support representative for retail. So I was able to just go ahead and make a relationship for that new role. So that was great.
Thank you, Grace. It's so wonderful to hear about the positive impact that Rosanna's mentorship has had on you just so far. And how long have y'all been a mentor and mentee? About how many months?
It's flown by. I mean, just a few months, as Grace mentioned. I was assigned a mentee earlier in the summer that has since left the organization. And so and it was going to be remote. She's based in Mexico, and that's fine. I think that we could definitely have a virtual mentor-mentee relationship. But then, being rematched with Grace, I think October, as you mentioned.
Wow. So just within maybe 3 months or so. That's amazing. And actually, Rosanna, you brought up something that I wanted to kind of elaborate on about that virtual mentorship. I know some of our mentor and mentees within our program are actually having that virtual mentorship. Do you have any advice or any thoughts on how to kind of make that relationship, although it's virtual, really grow and be impactful still?
Sure. So, I've personally benefited from a lot of mentorship. I think back in my early career where a lot of it was the face to face coffee talk, and then, of course, COVID, everyone being, remote. And I was able to join a really great organization called Sarisa, who I give a lot of credit to for a lot of the best practices. And those were all remote mentee mentor relationships. So while at my prior company, which is now Emerson, I was a mentor for someone at Splunk who was in Colorado. I was a mentor for someone in Arizona at Amazon, and then another person at Amazon in New York. And I kind of like that virtual relationship too, because you just really have that dedicated one-on-one, no distraction opportunity. And you don't have to worry about the commute. You can squeeze in, I think, more sessions and still have that pre-planning. What do we want to talk about? What's on your mind? And then what are we going to do next? So I think, Grace and I have talked a lot about having like a monthly munch where we go out and eat somewhere in Austin because we are both in Austin. But I bet you there'll be many times when she and I also just jump on a quick Teams because she needs help.
Yeah, I like exploring both, not only just that in-person relationship, but also that virtual relationship that can still just be as impactful. So thank you, Roseanne, and thank you, Grace, for your previous answer. It is wonderful to hear that no matter what that relationship looks like, there's always going to be a positive impact with mentorship. But I want to, again, focus on Rosanna really quick. So as a mentor and being a part of this program, how has mentoring others influenced your own professional and maybe even personal development?
I think there's a lot to be said about listening to your own advice. When you're listening to someone else and what they're struggling with and what they're trying to achieve, or, you tend to have you tend to have great options in your mind. Like you tend to think, well, have you considered this or what about that? Or you're probably not giving yourself enough credit, or you should raise your hand in that meeting. You pump up a mentee in ways that you're kind of subconsciously pumping yourself up too. And I've definitely encouraged my mentees to reach for the stars. In my experience now that I'm later in my career, I think that had I had a mentor, I should say, maybe in my 20s that spoken to me about leaning in. I guess I definitely did have that, but I think I had my own limits in my brain as to how high I would go in the organization. And now when I see someone as brilliant as Grace, she already has this analytical background and now she's going into product marketing. I imagine I'll be pumping her up a lot, which I will be, again, listening to my own advice about getting a seat at the table, working through conflict, asking questions you might think are dumb, like having all of that self-confidence and trying to silence those voices in your head about doubt, I too will be listening to.
I think also something that kind of popped into my mind while you were giving that answer was, what happens if you don't have the answers? Where do you go to? What do you do as a mentor?
So I think that's definitely a misconception about being a mentor. It's as if you need to know exactly the answer and you need to have walked in that person's exact shoes. And while we all tend to jump to an answer, really what we're expected to do is, which is a great thing because you don't always have the answer, is not give the answer, but help the mentee think through a solution. So if you wouldn't mind, I just want to kind of, again, back to Sarisa, share a couple of their powerful questions that they encourage mentors to ask, which is like one, just to kind of break the ice, is about kind of starting out like, what's been on your mind these last few weeks? And kind of let the mentor open up. And then when they mention something that is a challenge, you say like, well, so what has you stuck? Like help them kind of think about like what's kind of paralyzing them a bit. And then, what do you think this means? Like, and frankly, will this even matter in 5 years? To kind of like pull answers out. And then like, what resources have you already tapped into? Which resources would help you decide, maybe the next course of action? Or when it comes to big picture, like, what if it works out exactly as you want it to work out? I guess I'm just citing a few examples that they've shared where they're really just open-ended questions to help and to create space for the mentor to ruminate
And I think that that's actually something that's super important is that level of vulnerability that a mentor and a mentee have to have with one another. That, of course, is built over time as they get to know one another. But I feel like there can be a really great impact when that vulnerability is there between the two of them. Because when you ask these open-ended questions that are not geared to you telling Grace, well, this is what you need to fix and this is how you're going to fix it, right? It's not about that I'm over you and you're down here. It's about how do you guide her to understand that? And Grace, how do you feel about that approach?
I think it's really helpful just because I think a lot of times when you come to a meeting with, I don't know, set topics, it's easy just to kind of like burn through those. But when you kind of ask those open ended questions, there's a lot more room for explanation and understanding and like context behind where I'm coming from. So
Mhm.
I think that's really helpful to our conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So insightful. And, mentorship, like we've said, can be incredibly rewarding, but it also takes effort from both sides, as we've kind of explored so far in this conversation. So, how can mentors and mentees make the most of their time together? What can they do to ensure that their meetings are valuable and purposeful?
I think coming prepared with something that you want to
Mm.
discuss, whether, I mean, even if there's not a huge update or I guess, topic that's on your mind, just coming prepared with something to discuss kind of at least guides the meeting to begin with. And then also just being really diligent about following up on action items from the meeting. So, one thing Rosanna and I have talked about is being able to like read a book together. And so, actually reading the book and setting that time to make sure that I'm up to date on what I'm supposed to read so that when we meet, we can make the most of our time together with that discussion rather than having to kind of scramble.
I like that. I like almost like that pre-work that you all have both kind of mutually decided on. Hey, this is a commitment. This is a new type of relationship. And so we're going to put in the effort, before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting to
Yeah.
really make that impactful. Rosanna, did you want to add on to that?
Sure. I do want to emphasize that, Grace has a great manager, a day-to-day manager, and a mentor is not the person's manager. And so in the course of the week, of course, Grace is working through a lot of, you know, projects or processes or performances, so some manner. So really a mentorship, I see it as being like additional value where I'm helping Grace think beyond this week, beyond this month, beyond the future. And so when with aspirations in product marketing and she's not managing people, that could be a great book that we read together as to like how, and then we can learn together about the company, like how do we position Epicor products to the market so that customers find them compelling and then they buy them and then my team supports them. So I feel like we can collaborate a lot on a common topic and always carve out time in the session for maybe challenges that she's overcoming, but it doesn't necessarily have to be about challenges. It could also be about cultivating a certain area that they're fascinated or like trying to build. So I just did want to make the point that it doesn't replace a manager. It is a safe place. And so I don't speak to her manager about what we discussed, but we will be focusing more on the opportunity and how to make her grace, times 10, just like pouring out her greater grace. And so I think that book is going to be a good path. And I do want to look forward to it. And that means being prepared. So like, hey, Grace, like what's on your mind? Is there anything in particular? If not, then let's continue talking about the book. We'll go get lunch across the street. I'm here for you. And then a consistent time because we are so busy. I travel quite a bit. Just,
Yeah.
this will be like this day a month. We're going to get together, as I mentioned, like for a monthly munch. And I think that will be a way to not I don't want her to ever feel nervous or stressed about it. Oh my gosh, I'm not prepared. And now I got to go meet with Rosanna and I just want to cancel. Like, let's add some levity to this. So I do look forward to it. I've always loved mentoring up and coming risers because I do want to instill, and I have mentored men, but typically women, I do want to just instill this confidence and I want them to leave feeling lifted.
I really like that. I even think about my own mentorship it really makes an impact also when there's that trust that the mentor has in the mentee. I know for me, my mentor, she did a really amazing job of stepping back, providing me that feedback, listening to like what I wanted out of the relationship, what I wanted out of the task that I was wanting to accomplish, and just being able to just watch me, even just from a distance, and then providing that feedback was what helped me grow. And then I also got, like how Grace had mentioned, being able to observe you when you all went to your customer visits. My mentor was able to model certain concepts or certain things that I wanted to see in action. So that's what I really love. It's that balancing act between the two. And Rosanna, you also had mentioned carving out consistent times, being able to create that consistency and being able to prioritize that, hey, this is what I signed up for and I'm going to prioritize it as something important to me and in my work life. So that's great. By applying these different strategies of being able to make that time impactful, mentors and mentees can make the best out of their time together. And Grace, reflecting on your journey, can you share how your expectations of mentorship compared to the reality of your experience?
To be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I've only had really one other formal mentor in the past while I was in school, and we met like once or twice and then never again. And I think it's definitely helps that we have this connection of Epicor, and like being in office together helps a little bit too, to be able to have that like person to person connection. But I think that since we're working toward the same bigger goals, like Rosanna is able to understand a little bit better where I'm coming from and what I'm working toward. So I think our relationship so far has already surpassed what my expectations of a mentee mentor relationship.
Nice. What about you, Rosanna, as a mentor?
Yeah, I think every relationship is unique, but one thing I want to emphasize is that I want to understand too, like what she's trying to achieve. Like I'm not trying to make her a me. Like we're very different people, and I think you mentioned like your manager role model. Like I hope I can demonstrate, whether it be in front of the customer support or maybe how she frames a conversation with a colleague. I hope I can give her some really like good talking points or guidance, but I really do want it to feel genuine. Like this is the way she would approach it because I won't always be with her. Like this is meant to be foundational. I really think of me as being a tailwind for her. Like I really want to know more about what Grace is interested in so that I can keep her in mind. If I see an article, send it to her. If I, hear about something at work, send it to her. Just like be really her shadow or her like tailwind that just is helping think how I can best support her.
I really liked hearing, how you said you're not there to make her another you. You're there to shape and mold her into who she wants to be. And that's beautiful. I love hearing testimonies about how mentorship impacts, again, both the mentee and the mentor. However, there are some people who may hesitate to join a mentor program or to become a mentee or a mentor due to maybe certain misconceptions. Can either one of you share what some of these misconceptions about mentorship are and how we could overcome those misconceptions?
Yeah, I think so far we've mentioned time and preparedness a lot. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that something like this takes up a lot of your time, or you have to be super prepared for it and do a lot of work in advance that's just going to take too much time and be too distracting. But I don't think it has to be that way. Like, I think there's a certain level of preparedness. And then, of course, like our monthly munch, an hour once a month just to meet. But other than that, it doesn't have to be super stressful. It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. It can really be whatever you set it up to be. So I think that's important to remember.
And I just want to add on that, like, again, it has to be in close partnership with your manager. Like, what are you even striving for? What is your growth path? So you go into a mentor with confidence that this is fruitful. It's not like just an aimless, I don't know what I want to talk about. I don't know where I'm going to go. But if there is more ambition, like mutually established with your manager that you want to grow as an individual in this area or that area, then all of that, I mean, Epicor does a really good job of understanding what the Epicor mentee wants and then what the mentor can contribute and do matching. And then we meet, and then afterwards, we both kind of agree, like, this is a match. And then you go forward. Like, I think the initial like matching is the mentor is going to want to know what the mentee wants out of it so that they can help. They won't be able to help if they don't know what the desires are. So the more the manager can plant that seed with the employee that we believe in you, we really think that you've got a great path in this direction or that direction. Let me help you maybe get a third party mentor, neutral, that doesn't really know the ins and outs of our day to day, and they can help you work through these things. And I'm here to allow you that time.
Yeah.
And I really want to hear how it's going. So it is really a partnership with the manager.
Yeah, those are some great insights on those misconceptions. And to close our discussion, could both of you share one piece of advice for anyone thinking about joining the Epicor mentorship program?
I think keep an open mind. Your mentor doesn't have to be in the same role as you or the same team as you, even in a role that you necessarily want to be in. I think you can really learn from anyone. And like Rosanna and I have, kind of found where our roles overlap and found that middle piece and kind of focused on that. And I think, yeah, just keep an open mind.
And same with, there are a lot of mentors that are like in the making. A lot of people don't really think of themselves as maybe mentor material, but of course there is so much value that they can provide, even if they don't know. I could mentor a finance person, like I can't really calculate a lot of the part, but I could definitely ask, what are you trying to achieve and how can we get through it? And so I think carving out the time and believing in your own value to share, to encourage more mentors to step up would be great.
I really liked hearing that you don't have to be, someone who has been working in your field for 30, 40 years. What I really gathered from y'all's answers is anybody has the potential. And like Grace, how you had mentioned, you can learn something from anyone. It doesn't have to be someone from your specific field. It doesn't have to be someone from your specific level of work or line of work. Being able to be open-minded. I really appreciate y'all's answers.
Can I build on that last point one more thing? Because maybe this person aspires to be a people manager. Well, then they can work with a mentor that is a people manager that can help pave the way and help them, avoid some pitfalls. Or maybe, like in my case, I'm a working mom. If someone else aspires down the road to have children, they too can see how I manage, or if someone really wants to pivot to a completely different field. I went from marketing, now I'm like post-sale customer support, that too. So I think the more, again, you understand what the mentee really understands what they're trying to achieve, then there's a wealth of experience within the company that can be a step in that direction. And last point, it doesn't have to be forever. It could be a 3-month, it could be a year. I think the term of a mentor-mentee can be somewhat mutually established by the mentor and mentee. When they feel like the value has been achieved, then cool, let's move on.
And I think that's also something I hadn't even thought about is how long do you mentor someone? How long until you become a mentor yourself? I think it's all about kind of like that self-awareness and self-analysis of where you are. It kind of also makes me think back to one of our previous guests that we had on here, Kelly Greenwald, when she said, there's going to be life swerves and there's going to be, you might need different people at different times in your life. You're going to need a different mentor.
Absolutely.
At different times in your life. And that's okay. And that's okay to accept the value that someone brought to you and then move on and maybe share that value with someone else or get new value from a new person. So as every episode ends, we always end on one final question. What is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self at the start of your career?
Grace, you're in the beginning of your career. Are you following your advice so far?
As best as I can. I think, I'm still toward the beginning of my career, but I would say just trust your gut. I definitely struggle from a little bit of indecisiveness and just trusting your gut and starting somewhere. You can always change your mind. You can always, follow what you're curious about in different directions. But yeah, just trusting your gut.
And, as I reflect back again, I have been blessed with great managers and mentors over the years. And so I think they've instilled confidence in me, but maybe just having that much more confidence to look beyond your own function. I think I was in the throes of marketing for so long, so you're kind of marketing and sales, and then just one floor below me was operations. And I really didn't reach out to learn more about that organization. And then I ended up joining it years later thinking, oh my gosh, like this is a whole world of value. And so I think if anything, as early as possible, just look at the entirety of a customer experience at a company and everything from initial hiring all the way through customers' loyalty, like just everything in between. I mean, I joked about advising someone in finance, but I probably should talk to our finance team too here just to better understand how.
Yeah, looking beyond what you know and trusting your gut throughout the process. Great advice for anyone at the beginning of their career, in the middle of their career, or even maybe nearing the end. So as we wrap up, I want you to consider, if you are an employee at Epicor, joining our mentorship program. Currently, we have 142 mentees enrolled and only 77 mentors signed up. So if you feel called to either be a mentor or a mentee, please sign up today by visiting the professional development site on EpicNet. You can scroll to the mentoring section and you'll find registration links and more details on the right-hand side. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Talent and Leadership Development team. Are there any other resources that you want to share, either Grace or Rosanna, about mentoring at all?
Final plug for Ceresa.org, CERESA. It's a great organization that, again, helps with a lot of leadership development, but mentoring is at the core. So their site has great articles, whether you're a mentee or you want to become a mentor. And that's what I would suggest.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rosanna, for that resource. Definitely check that out as well. It should be linked on our EpicNet page. Thank you again, Rosanna Martinez and Grace Masichuk, for joining our show today. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you for listening and keep learning.